initially I come in here and I feel like I can put lights everywhere and it's going to be great, and then I realize quickly that all these overlapping lights are making it not possible to play the game at the right speed, and it's a problem, so I have to rethink my strategy. Video games, lighting isn't used the same way as we do. When you work on films, you trust your eye, you work with light as something you can feel. It's like paint to a painter. You get to the video game world and you have to question everything because light doesn't behave the way it's supposed to. So you can basically put lights in thin air, they're invisible. And that's great. The problem is lights are super expensive, they cost time. So we have to be extremely careful about where we put lights, how many lights cross, because the minute you have a single pixel that's lit by one light, they have to calculate it once, and it's shadows. You put two lights on it, the same pixel now has to be calculated twice, and same with the shadows. So a lot of what I had to do initially when I came in was trying to figure out what tricks I did on set, why I did them, and how to obtain the same result in this world.
It's similar in some ways to a film, but it's also very, very different. It's similar because there's a story, there are characters, there are dialogues, and there are cameras. But it's very different because it's fully interactive, and it totally changes what the experience is about, because it's not an experience that you watch, it's an experience that you play, where you make choices, where you tell your own story through the decisions you make and through gameplay.
In a TV writing room, you'll often put a character in a dilemma, and then as TV writers you'll sit around and debate what would the character do. And maybe half the room thinks he'd be brave and half the room thinks it's too soon, he wouldn't be brave yet. But in the end you make a decision and you show the decision to the audience. What's exciting about interactive stuff is that the player, the audience, is in the room with you and can make their own decision about what that character does. The steepest challenge was also the steepest opportunity in that sense.
And that was something very important for us when we designed the game. We didn't want to create a game that you would watch, and we didn't want the story to be told through cutscenes. We wanted the story to be told through your actions. And that was really one of the pillars that we gave ourselves at the beginning of the design.
So I come from a TV background, and in television you write linear stories. So you write along, you have an axis of time and you have an axis of the character's arc. And maybe in Act 1 the character's doing well, and maybe in Act 2 they're in trouble. As soon as you add choice to a story, the story now exists in 3 dimensions. Because this dimension of choice allows the player to divert the story in many more directions.
I think the film industry and the game industry definitely get inspiration one from the other. Probably games started copying or being inspired by films initially, but now I can also see the other side and see now films getting sometimes inspiration from games in the way they film or in the way they tell stories somehow. There's still a huge distance between the two mediums, of course, and it's a huge challenge for us in games to tell better stories, especially when you see the quality that we know in films for a century, but also that now we see in TV series that is incredibly high. We know that somehow we compete with them, except we have interactivity in the middle of this story. We want to use interactivity to tell our stories. So it's an extended challenge, but it's a very exciting one.